moved and seconded. Those who are in support of the motion say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Any petitions?
Thank you, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues, Osita Ngu, Enugu West. Mr. President, I have two petitions to lay. The first one is from Emmanuel Ojika.
Just before then, let me wish some of our colleagues happy birthday. Because I mean, we are born almost every day. So let me felicitate with distinguished Senator Aliu Wamako. He was born on the first day of March. Distinguished Senator, Einaya Abaribe. And you didn't tell anybody. Born 1st of March. So we see you after this. To cut the cake. Congratulations. And distinguished Senator Abdul Hamid Maiduri Ahmed. 3rd of March. And my brother, distinguished Senator Kawu Suleiman Abdurrahman, was also born on the 3rd of March. So I want to say happy birthday. May Almighty God grant each and every one of you many more years of prosperity, good health, and wisdom to continue to contribute your quota towards nation building. On behalf of the 10 Senates. I just received this from OGD, Otumba Benga Daniels. I think this is one of the most beautiful invitation cards I've seen. It's even better than the one of King Charles when he was coronated. No, it's not because he's a former governor. He's a man of style. There are many former governors who cannot afford this. Am I not a former governor? Can I afford this? We have spoken. So, please join him and all of us in celebrating the 60th birthday of his beautiful wife, Yeye Olufunke Benga Daniels, on Saturday, 23rd day of March, 2024. It will be a day of thanksgiving and celebration. And this will take place at the Bar Moral, at the Sheraton Hotel, Bank Anthony Way, Mobalaji Bank Anthony Way in Lagos. The service will start from 11 o'clock and reception will last till daybreak. So, congratulations to Our Excellency in advance for our 60th birthday. We are all invited. Yes. The lights, they are still working on it. It went off since morning. It's even affecting some offices on the 4th floor. We have about 9 offices that they have not been able to rectify, but they are working on it. They've assured us that before 1 o'clock, the lights will be okay. However, I noticed even the press up there, some of them are fanning themselves, so at least they feel the heat also. If it gets too hot, then we may have to adjourn for a while to allow them to conclude. But I think they are working on it. So I apologize for any inconvenience. Yes, distinguished Senator Osita Ngu.
Thank you, Mr. President. Osita Ngu, Enugu West. And the first petition, Mr. President, is from my constituent, Emmanuel Ojika, who went to complain about a poor or bad product he purchased from Airtel, and he ended up being beaten up, tied fuel poured on his body, and he was almost set ablaze in Abuja. He's here to seek justice. He hasn't gone to any court, and he feels...
Come again. I don't think my colleagues are hearing you.
...to complain about a poor product, a bad product he purchased from them. The security men attached to Airtel beat him up, tied him, poured the fuel on his body, and he was almost set ablaze. He was accused of armed robbery. He has written this petition after trying several times to get justice, and he feels this hollow chamber will help him get justice.
There was the matter reported to the police?
To the police.
The police failed to give him justice?
Mr. President.
You can lay the petition.
Mr. President, permit me to read out also to talk about a second petition from another constituent of mine, Mrs. Umeyo Lochinwe-Joy, who entered an agreement with a property developer. She had met her own part of the bargain, paid the dues necessary. Suddenly, the developer is now reneging on the agreement they have. She has tried all possible ways to get justice, and she is also seeking the assistance of this hallowed chamber, and she is presenting that case. If you grant me, I will lay the petition, both petitions, Mr. President.
Please. The two petitions are hereby referred to the Senate Committee on Ethics, Code of Conduct, and Public Petitions to report back to the Senate in 2 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the first business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Kalu Orji Uzo on the National Environmental Standards and Regulations Agency Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 19. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Environmental Standards and Regulations Agency Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 19, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, National Environmental Standards and Regulations Agency Act Amendment Bill 2026, SB 19, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, the second business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Karimi Sunday Steve on the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offenses Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 23. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offenses Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 23, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offenses Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 23, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, the third business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Mongunu Mohammed Tahir on the Oaths Bill 2024 SB 28 Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Oaths Bill 2024, SB 28, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Oaths Bill 2024, SB 28, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Daniel Olugbenga Justus on the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 45. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 45, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 45, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the fifth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Emmanuel Udende Memga on the Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 376. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 376, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters Act Amendment Bill 2024, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President, and very distinguished colleagues. The
Point of order.
Mr. President, point of order. Can I raise two for the 42?
Yes, what order? Order 42, go ahead. Read. You may read. Read order 42.
Thank you, Mr. President. By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may raise a personal explanation through, though there be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make is sought. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, distinguished Senator Ifeanyi Ubah had requested that he has a personal explanation to make. Is it the view of the Senate that he be allowed to do so? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's just appreciation and to thank Mr. President and my colleagues. I want, on behalf of the Southeast Senators and honorable members, to express my heartfelt gratitude to the Senate for the passage of the landmark bill to alleviate the yearnings of the Southeast region. I must say that the Southeast Development Commission bill will put an end to the age-long perceived marginalization of the Southeast. Recall that this bill was introduced by me on the 4th of October 2023 as SB 129, which has gotten another concurrence from the House of Representatives and the note of the Senate President, a note of the Senate for the presidential assent. It is important to know that this bill will not only put the perceived marginalization of the Southeast to an end, but will also, when signed into law, enable the Southeast zone to benefit directly from federal government intervention programs which are already being enjoyed by other zones like the South-South, Northeast through the Niger Delta Development Commission and South-Northeast Development Commission respectively. Once again, I want to thank you, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues on this honor done to the Southeast. Thank you, Senator Fanyuba.
Point of order sustained. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is the second reading of a bill standing in my name on the National Assembly. The first order of the day is the second reading of a bill standing in my name on the National Assembly Library Trust Fund Act Amendment Bill 2024 SB 373. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read for the first time in this chamber on Thursday, 29 February 2024. Mr. President, with your permission, I move that the bill be read a second time. And in support of this motion, Mr. President, I ask to be allowed to proceed with my lead debate.
Yes, Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion moved by the Senate Leader that this bill be read a second time.
The distinguished colleagues, those who are in support of the motion that the Senate Leader be allowed to proceed with his lead debate, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You may proceed with the lead debate.
Mr. President, my respected colleagues, I rise to lead the debate most respectfully on this crucial piece of legislation that demands our immediate attention and support. It is my honor to lead the debate on the National Assembly Library Trust Fund Amendment Bill 2024. The bill was read in this hallowed chamber for the first time on Thursday, 29 February 2024. This pivotal piece of legislation, which seeks not only to modernize, but also to enhance the very essence of our legislative institution. This bill represents a significant step forward in our commitment to fostering knowledge dissemination, preserving our legislative heritage, and advancing our democratic values. The proposed amendments within this bill are not merely cosmetic changes, but rather a comprehensive reimagining of our National Assembly Library and Resource Center. First, the bill proposes to change the National Assembly Library Trust Fund to the National Assembly Library and Resource Center. This change is more than a name alteration. Distinguished colleagues, it symbolizes a shift towards inclusivity, accessibility, and the recognition of the evolving needs of our nation's greatest institution. Furthermore, the establishment of the National Assembly Museum is a groundbreaking initiative that will serve as a repository of our legislative history, a testament to our democratic journey, and an educational resource for generations to come. This museum will not only celebrate our achievements, but also inspire future leaders to uphold the principles of democracy and good governance. In addition to these significant changes, the bill also proposes to transition the governance structure from a board of trustees to a governing council. This transition aims to streamline decision-making processes, enhance transparency, and ensure accountability in the management of the National Assembly Library and Resource Center. Mr. President, my respected colleagues, the nomenclature of the Executive Secretary is proposed to be replaced with that of Director General, aligning with international best practices and reflecting the expanded scope of responsibilities entrusted upon this position. Mr. President, distinguished senators, the National Assembly Library Trust Fund Amendment Bill 2024 represents a landmark opportunity to modernize our legislative infrastructure, promote intellectual growth, and strengthen the foundation of our democracy. The National Assembly Library Trust Fund, now Resource Center, if approved, was established last year with the primary objectives of providing essential resources for the building, equipping, and maintenance of a fully functional state-of-the-art library for this great institution, the National Assembly. However, just few months of the commencement of its operation, it has suffered from certain limitations that have impeded its ability to truly fulfill its purpose. One of the primary constraints that have greeted and will continue to greet the Resource Center is its heavy reliance on budgetary allocations for revenue. This will restrict its potential and make it susceptible to the uncertainties associated with yearly budgetary processes. Consequently, it will face difficulties in meeting its operational and developmental requirements. To address this issue, the proposed amendment seeks to increase the revenue sources available to the Resource Center. By diversifying the sources of income, we aim to ensure a stable and sustained flow of funds for the library's activities. This will enable the library to expand its services, acquire new and relevant materials, and modernize its infrastructure. This will, in no small measure, aid us in performing our duties as legislators. Furthermore, the amendment addresses the need to align the library with modern best practices. It recognizes the importance of preserving our country's rich cultural heritage by allocating funds for the establishment and maintenance of a museum and archiving facilities within the library premises. It also acknowledges the significance of the digital age by allocating resources for the development and maintenance of a robust e-library platform. I urge all of you, distinguished colleagues, to support without reservation the second reading of this amendment bill and contribute to further improvement of our own National Assembly Library. I thank you.
Distinguished Senator Abaribe.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I thank the leader for bringing up this amendment bill. I've always wondered why we call it a trust fund. But, Mr. President, I ask a simple question to the leader. At this age and at this time, where Mr. President has already directed for the government of Nigeria to implement the Oronsaye report, which means that we have to consolidate things. What exactly is the difference between the National Institute of Legislative and Democratic Studies that we have, NILS, and this particular Library and Resource Center? Because my opinion of NILS was that it was also a repository of the same resource that we are doing now. So rather than have two agencies, as much as we would like to keep this, why don't we now see how we can merge both agencies and see that we have one center that we cater to both the resource and the particular other things that they do there. As much as I know, and I agree that we need the library and so forth, and the museum, as the case may be, and the resource center. Two agencies that we have within the National Assembly doing functions that are complementary to each other. We need to also look for efficiency. That is my submission. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Baribe, that is very futuristic. Like you pointed out, what you have right now is trust fund. I also wondered why trust fund. And this is an act of parliament that was enacted just last year. So realizing the difficulty of operating under trust fund, they have come before us to have a change of name to National Assembly Library and Resource Center. So let's serve the Library and Resource Center, and thereafter we look at their functionalities thereafter, and then we see whether they need to come together as one. I think it's a good idea. Senator Nader.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Neda Imaswe is my name, representing Edo South Senatorial District. I stand to lend my voice to this library and museum resource center that has been proposed here. I say so because for an institution like ours, yes, it's developing, but we're also hoping that in its developmental stride, that it will grow to such an extent that other countries around us, students and universities, will find it a resource center for research, and it will deepen our democracy. The museum is very important because it sets to preserve our history. And I only hope that when such a museum is set up, that it will go back in history so that we can be able to document our history, historical strides from the beginning till now, for our children, our children's children, to see how far we have come. For me, it's a good bill, and it's something that I lend my voice to support, not just for now, but for the future. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Is there anybody that is opposed to this bill? Nobody. So the leader, nobody is opposed to the bill. So those who are in support of the motion that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. Nay. The ayes have it. Just before then, let us just read this bill first. Proceed, the clerk.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to amend the National Assembly Library Trust Fund Establishment Act, number 11 of 2022, to change the name to National Assembly Library and Resource Center, provide for additional source of fund for the center, eliminate the ambiguity in the chairmanship position of the Governing Council, streamline the functions of the Governing Council and the Office of the Director General, and to provide for the application of the funds of the center to set up the National Assembly Museum and for related matters 2024. Second reading.
Distinguished colleagues, A bill for an act to amend the National Assembly Library Trust Fund Establishment Act number 11 of 2022 to change the name to National Assembly Library and Resource Center, provide for additional sources of funds for the center, eliminate the ambiguity in the chairmanship position of the Governing Council, streamline the functions of the Governing Council and the Office of the Director General, and to provide for the application of the funds of the center to set up the National Museum and for related matters 2024 second reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, in compliance with Senate Rule 80 sub 1 of the Senate Standing Orders 2022 as amended, I move that the bill be referred to the Committee of the Whole to be taken on the next legislative day. I so move, Mr. President.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I second the motion that the bill on the National Assembly Library be moved to the Committee of the Whole. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion will be moved and seconded that this bill be slated for the next legislative day. Those who are in support of this motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Yes, distinguished Senator Ningi.
Mr. President, my name is Senator Abdul Ningi, and I represent Bauchi Central, Bauchi State. Mr. President, I rise on Order 42, and with their permission, I will read.
Please read. Your microphone.
By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the Senate President, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there may be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when he is leave to make it his thought. Mr. President, my colleague and friend brought a point of order 42 on personal explanation. Senator Ifeanyi Uba. Mr. President, for every order in place in the rules of the Senate or the House of Representatives, there is underlying reason behind it. Mr. President, here you are the custodian of the rules of the Senate, and therefore, as an affects law-making body, when matters are introduced not in consonant with the rules of the Senate, I feel it is our duty to call your attention, call that attention with the Senate, and call the senator in question that the matter he raised is not anticipated by this explanation. Here we are, Mr. President. We had passed the Southeast Development Bill here on third reading. And after doing that, and we have a colleague who brought this matter again, appreciating the Senate for what the Senate has done in the House of Representatives, for what the Senate has done. This is an anomaly. It doesn't happen. Once your bill passes second, third reading, that bill becomes a Senate bill. It is no longer your own. You push it for the President for assent. And therefore, when my friend Ipanyi brought this matter, I think it is important he should be guided, and I think it is important that the Senate should be guided. This particular personal explanation is not anticipated within the rules of the House. So I want you to take note of it, so that you don't introduce matters and it becomes, the rules becomes diluted, bastardized, and then at the end of the day, we don't have any rules to rely upon. I think you have noted the point of order, but this should not enter our boards and proceedings for tomorrow, because it's not the right thing to do, just as a guide. Thank you.
Well, let me just, even though we shouldn't have any debates by virtue of the rule, but you know, like you said, the Senate President is the custodian of the rules. Senator Ifeanyi, were you talking about the Southeast Development Commission that was passed?
Mr. President, I don't think there is anything wrong. I have had many senators in this hallowed chamber appreciating the senators or his colleagues for passing a bill and a motion that I raised here. I don't think it's an issue, because even though it's been passed, it's just a point of explanation and appreciation. So if you don't take appreciation, sir, and you know you're my very good friend, if you don't if you don't like appreciation, maybe next time when I see you, I may not greet you, but I know you are my senior colleague, and I always like to appreciate people for a job well done. Thank you. I'm just appreciating the hallowed chamber for the passage of the bill. Thank you. That's all.
So when next you see him, you will greet him. Senator Dube, please advise them to greet each other.
Mr. President, I'm Senator Mohammed Ali Ndume, and by the grace of God and the benevolence of my colleagues, I'm the Chief Whip. The Senate leader, former Senate leader, he was my leader in the House of Rep, Abdul Ningi, made a very, very important observation. I always remind us that this is Senate. This is Senate. And I also want to plead with my colleagues to read the history of Senate and what it means, what it's supposed to do. So having said that, I appreciate the anxiety of our distinguished colleagues about the passage of the Southeast Development Commission, just like the Southwest and North Central. But we can't go about appreciating ourselves for doing our job. So once this kind of personal explanation is brought before you, one, it should be before the sitting, and two, you should have advised our colleague personally. And I think we would have appreciated his appreciation if he sends the message to us individually. So I will advise our colleague, and I will expect him to send me appreciation later through my WhatsApp.
What's my name for appreciation?
The Chief Whip of the Senate, we really should not have any debate on this. But the former leader of the House of Representatives and the civil senator, Nengi, only asked for one request. And that request was that the personal explanation was noted by the chair. However, that the bill had become the bill of the Senate, awaiting the assent of Mr. President. And so thanking the Senate again, personally, that it was no longer a personal bill. I think that is the aspect he's looking at. So I note that Chief Dr. Ifeanyi is excited about the bill, and he felt he should come and thank the Senate. But I want to agree with you that he can thank God by sending letters to our mailboxes, or even our platform. And so your request, distinguished Senator Nengi, your request that we have noted the appreciation, but it should be expunged from the votes and proceedings of the day is sustained. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. The second order of the day is the second reading of the Federal University of Education Newman, Adamawa State Establishment Bill 2024, SB 270. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 21st November 2023. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Yaro Binos Dauda to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Distinguished Senator Yaro Binos.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Binos Dauda Yaro. I represent Adamawa South. Mr. President, before I go into the debate on this bill, I would like to express my appreciation to Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues and some staff of the office of the clerk and the office of the Sergeant at Arms, who, having noticed my prolonged absence from the Senate, called or sent me messages to find out how I was doing. I just returned from medical treatment, and to the glory of God, I am much better. So I appreciate everybody that has sent messages to find out how I was doing. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead the debate for the second reading of the Federal Universal Education Numan Adamawa State Establishment Bill 2024. This bill, which seeks to provide for the establishment of the Federal Universal Education Numan Adamawa State, was passed by the 9th National Assembly, but was not assented to due to late passage when that administration was winding down. The bill was read the first time in this hallowed chamber on Tuesday, 21st November 2023. For any country to achieve meaningful development, the socio-economic and political system must be enhanced. This is why successive Nigerian governments placed much emphasis on the development of the individuals as a means to national development. Education is the sure means of developing individual potentials. Little wonder, therefore, that the National Policy on Education 1981 postulates that education is the greatest investment that the nation can make for the quick development of its economic, political, sociological, and human resources. Among the various educational institutions through which the nation hopes to achieve its developmental goals, specialized universities of education should take preeminence because they are set up to train the trainers. The development of a sound and robust educational system in any country is therefore predicated on the availability of qualified and well-trained teachers to impact the required knowledge on the students. Thus, the need to have a strong system in our educational sector that shall continuously produce well-qualified and trained teachers as is obtainable in other countries cannot be overemphasized. This is the fundamental justification for the establishment of this specialized institution of higher learning, the Federal Universal Education Numan. Undoubtedly, the realization that universities of education are tools for national development have led to an unbridled quest for and vigorous expansion of such institutions in Nigeria. Broadly, a universal education's main functions, among others, are as listed therein, 1, 2, 3, 4. The objective of the university as outlined in the bill, among others, includes A, to encourage the advancement of learning to all persons without distinction of race, creed, sex, or political conviction. B, to develop and offer academic and professional programs leading to the award of certificates, diplomas, first and higher degrees, and postgraduate research in all fields of education. And C, to produce socially mature professional educators with capabilities to not only understand educational needs of Nigeria as a nation, but also to exploit existing educational infrastructure and improve on it and develop new ones. Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, having enumerated the objectives of the bill, it is pertinent to briefly explain the choice of Numan as the location of the university. Historically, Numan arguably ranks in the same class with such cities and towns like Zaria, Bida, Kefi, Ilorin, etc., as centers of post-primary education in northern Nigeria, right from the colonial period. It is significant that the first girls' boarding school established in the whole of northern Nigeria was in 1926 in Numan. Before and after independence, Numan boasted of a number of missionary post-primary schools, such as Numan Teachers College, Villanova Secondary School, Numan, Brownham Secondary School, Numan, Craft School, Numan, Women Teachers College, Numan. Before the takeover of missionary schools by government in 1973, there is not a single town or city in the whole northeastern state that boasted this number of post-primary schools in one cluster. These other cities and towns that have been known to be citadels of education in the north, as Numan was, today all boast of one or more tertiary institutions, but not Numan. As a matter of fact, in the entire Adamawa South Senatorial District, which is the largest in Adamawa State and comprises 9 out of the 21 local government areas of the state, there is not a single federal government tertiary institution. Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues, the enactment of this bill will go a long way in transforming the decayed educational infrastructure in Nigeria and change the educational fortunes of the country for the better. It will also provide a balanced educational development in Adamawa State. In line with Order 76.3 of the Senate Standing Orders 2023 as amended, a compendium of the financial implication of the establishment of the university is hereby attached. It is important to add that the Adamawa State government has indicated willingness to allow the university take off at the Numan campus of the Adamawa State Polytechnic. Therefore, Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, it is my prayer and ardent call that you consider the plight of the people who are desirous of becoming professional teachers and support the expeditious passage of this bill. Thank you very much, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues. I so submit.
Yes, dismissed Senator Akwashiki.
Mr. President, my very distinguished colleagues, I am Senator Akwashiki Godia, I represent Nasarawa North Central District. Mr. President, Order 2 in the order paper of today in favor of Senator Yaro Binos Dauda, Adamawa South, is appearing in the order of this Senate for the second time. This bill have appeared in the order paper of the 9th Senate. He convinced us, we passed the bill, send it to the committee, and I'm a member of that committee. We worked on the bill, send it to the executive arm of government for assent. But today, because the president declined his assent, I want to commend his sagacity for reintroducing the bill today. As we all know, in every society, when you need development, it's education, you must work, they are working hand in hand. Education, they work in partnership with every government that needs development. Mr. President, it won't be wise, just like he said, the financial implication in 76 sub 3, that he has made it up. It won't be wise for us to pass bill
send it to executive arm of government, a very important bill like this, and really send it back, or maybe declining assent. When we keep doing this, we are bringing back Nigerian backward. And education is the background of every government. And it's that's why we are here representing our own people today, Mr. President. Without education, you cannot be there. And without education, I cannot be here. Likewise, any other senators that were here. I want to urge the leadership of the Senate, especially the Senate leader, who is the liaison between the Senate and the executive arm of government, to help, to push, to see the light, where most of the important bill like this, to see the light of the day, so that it will draw education closer to our own people, to our own rural people, because when we bring education, I want to believe education or university is one of the most important and key things that executive arm of government need to look into it, not that to decline it and to be signing other selected bills. Mr. President, I want you to maybe liaise with the leader, who is the liaison between the Senate and the executive arm of government, to help all his colleagues to look into some of these bills, because a lot of bills in the 9th Senate were declined as sent by Mr. President. And I want to believe the present Senate President, being a former senator of the Federal Republic, should help us to sign some of these bills to draw education closer to our own people. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I want to commend Binos for bringing this, of introducing this bill for the second time in the 10th Senate, because he convinced us beyond reasonable doubt in the 9th Senate. And I'm a member of the committee that worked on this bill, and we have sent with me all the criteria based on 76 sub 3, as he said. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I want us to support him so that let's see we can send this bill back to Mr. President for assent. Thank you very much.
So, any person opposed to the bill? Yes, Senator Nengi. Are you opposed to it?
How can I, Mr. President? By your leave, let me just say one or two things about this bill, and Numan in particular, if you agree.
I mean, are you opposed to it? Just make it short.
Senator Abdul Ningi, Bauchi Central, Bauchi State. Mr. President, let me commend Senator Yaro for a very painstaking job on this particular matter. He had proposed this bill, and it passed the concurrence of the National Assembly on the 21st of November, 2003. It begs the question that Numan, of all places, one of the most important resource emirate in northern Nigeria, in terms of providing manpower to the former northeastern region, and then one of the most also important resource in terms of providing some of the very best military officers of the country. One of the oldest emirates in Nigeria that do not have a federal president actually weakens my heart. For us as a Senate, what we must begin to continue to do is making sure that there is fairness, equity. There is no way, sir, anywhere in any state, that a place like Numan should not have a federal presence in terms of education, because of their long history, because of their population, because of their contribution to the well-being of the Nigerian state. And I think it is important, just like Akwashiki said, when this bill passes, that the Senate leader follows it up. I'm surprised that President Buhari did not sign this bill. He knows the importance of Numan and his resources, because he's a soldier. He knows what that particular area, particular community has contributed in terms of the military manpower of Nigeria. And I think it is apt that they should have a federal presence in educational institutions. So this Federal College of Education is apt, and we should be able to ask and give them what they require, because it is a call for fairness and equity. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, distinguished colleagues. I want to thank distinguished Senator Binos here for representing this bill. It was earlier passed by the 9th Senate, and then coming back here, I believe, and I pray that this will be the last time that you will need to bother about bringing it, because if the current president assents it into an act of parliament, we will not bother to bring it back. But I think Numan really deserves a tertiary institution. And I don't know yet, but I will discuss privately with you when the bill is assented to whether we should name it after the last traditional ruler. What's the name now?
Stephen.
The title.
Amapachama, Colonel Honest Iremia Stephen.
Bachama. He was my very good friend, and he was always my guest in Akwa Ibom when I was a governor. He was an avid Scrabble player, and I was sponsoring international Scrabble competitions. So he used to stay with me sometimes up to a week in my state. Unfortunately, he passed on due to illness, and so please think in that direction. Distinguished colleagues, those in support of the motion that this bill be read a second time, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the Federal University of Education, Numan, Adamawa State, and for other matters connected there with 2024, second reading.
Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the Federal University of Education, Numan, Adamawa State, and for other matters connected there with 2024, second reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, in compliance with Rule 80, Sub 1 of the Senate Standing Orders 2022 as amended, I move that the bill be referred to the Committee of the Whole to be taken on another legislative day. I so move, Mr. President.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion that the bill be referred to Committee of the Whole to be taken in the next legislative day. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, those who are in support of the motion that this bill be now referred to the Committee of the Whole to be taken on the next legislative day, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The bill is now referred to the Committee of the Whole, and Rules and Business will schedule it for consideration in the Committee of the Whole. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues. The third and final order of the day is the second reading of the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NIMASA Act, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2024, SB 158. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read for the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 10th October 2023. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Eshinlokun Sani Wasiu to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Distinguished Senator Eshinlokun Wasiu.
Thank you, the Senate President, distinguished colleagues. I remain Senator Wasiu Sani Eshinlokun, representing the good people of Lagos Central. I rise to move that the bill a bill for an act to repeal the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency Act 2007 and reenact the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency Act 2023 to provide for the establishment of the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency for the promotion of maritime safety and security, protection of the marine environment, ship registration and commercial shipping, maritime labor, and for related matters, be read the second time. Sir, I will crave your indulgence to quickly lead the debate for this all-important bill. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it is with deep sense of responsibility that I lead this debate on the second reading of the bill, which seeks to repeal the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency Act 2007 and enact the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency Act 2023 and for related matters. This bill was read the first time in this hallowed chamber on Tuesday, 10th of October 2023. The Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency Act of 2007 has been in operation since 2007. In these 16 years, operation lapses and statutory lacunas have been observed. In response to the agitations of the operators and expectation of sector stakeholders, the National Assembly chaperoned the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency Amendment Bill 2021 and was passed by the National Assembly but was not assented to due to its late passage. The objectives of the bill include to promote the development of coastal shipping, trade and indigenous commercial shipping on national and international waters. 2, to regulate and promote maritime safety and security, to protect the marine environment, and also regulate ship registration, and regulate also the development of maritime labor. This current bill expanded the scope of the Act beyond its previous applications to ships, small ships and crafts registered in Nigeria, as outlined in the old Act. It now encompasses a broader range, including maritime, shipping and cabotage matters, incorporation ports, port facilities, and all other marine vessels registered in Nigeria. Furthermore, its jurisdiction extends to crafts flying a foreign flag in the exclusive economic zone, territorial and inland seas, inland waterways, and within the ports of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. This bill expands the scope beyond that of the old Act, covering additional matters as explained below. Matters related to the provision of maritime labor in the Nigerian maritime zones. The functions assigned to the agency in the bills are comprehensive. The agency is mandated to administer the regulation and licensing of ships, small crafts, shipping companies or agents. It also oversees ship buildings and ship repair yards, ship scrapping or recycling facilities, and ensure the accreditation of marine surveyors, maritime enterprises engaged in various activities. Additionally, the agency is responsible for the regulating maritime training institution, administering the certification of seafarers, protecting the marine environment from all forms of pollution, and establish procedures and strategies for implementing conventions of international organizations such as IMO, the International Labour Organization ILO, and this includes Convention on Maritime Safety and Security, Maritime Labour, Commercial Shipping, and implementation of codes, resolutions, and circulars arising from these conventions. And the bills also includes provision to ensure national security. It mandates the agency to conduct search and rescue services in line with Nigeria's obligations under international conventions. Furthermore, all other agencies' function must align with the obligations under agreement between Nigeria and other countries. In performing its function, the agency shall consider the International Safety Management Code, the International Ship and Port Facility Security Code, other international conventions, and national legislation related to ship safety and security. These bills contain comprehensive and detailed provisions on how the agency shall be funded, unlike the old act. It specifies that the funds will accrue from various sources, including fees for ship registrations, licenses, surveys, inspections, examinations, certifications, sea protection levy, offshore waste reception facility levy, permits used by the agency, fines, charges, and levies paid to the agency. The bill has no further consequential financial implication. Distinguished colleagues, this bill is imperative for the consideration of the Senate to promote effective maritime administration, safety, and security. The bills will enable economic empowerment and contribute to national development. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this bill is necessary, timely, and desirable. I humbly invite distinguished senators to support this bill for second reading. Thank you very much.
The distinguished Senator Wasu, the bill was earlier passed by the 9th Senate. It was not assented to.
In May 2023, it was not assented to due to late passage, sir.
Are you sure? Because the functions seem to overlap with the functions of the Nigerian Port Authority and also the functions of the Nigerian Navy in securing the maritime waterways. Have you looked at the two acts? The functions of the Navy vis-a-vis the functions of the Nigerian Port Authority?
Sir, there is clear demarcation between the two. In fact, there is no overlapping functions between the two. While the territorial integrity of Nigeria will be secured, all these functions, they are not new to NIMASA. They have been performing over time this same function. And NIMASA work closely with other security agencies in the, on the waters and providing enough security. That is why NIMASA is called Nigerian Maritime Safety and Security Agency. Over time, the blue economy, especially the safety of the waterways, Gulf of Guinea, has been embarked upon by NIMASA and the various forces, Navy, Air Force, Army. It was a comprehensive one, but being funded, as it were, by NIMASA. That is why, for the last 2.5 years, there is no act of piracy in the Gulf of Guinea. It is due to the hard work of NIMASA and other agencies. Their collaboration is exceptional. The funding is all adequate. Thank you, sir.
This is Senator Oduagan. As you contribute, use your mic. As she's contributing, let her use the mic.
Pardon me, Mr. President, I was actually engrossed in the discussion that concerns the Senate with my brother, distinguished Senator Akwashiki.
Distinguished colleagues, she is hereby pardoned that she was engrossed in a discussion with Senator Akwashiki, and so she was no longer with the Senate. So, distinguished Senator Boguru.
Distinguished Senate President, distinguished senators, my name is Mohamed Tahir Monguno. I represent Borno North Senatorial District. Mr. President, the question you directed to the sponsor of this motion is apt and very, very relevant. But since we are at this stage, debating the general principles of the bill, the questions that you directed to the sponsor of the bill will be thrashed out, the nitty-gritty of it will be thrashed out during the consideration of the bill. Be that as it may, Mr. President, distinguished senators, I wholeheartedly adopt the submissions of the sponsor of this bill and want to further add that this bill is in consonance with the drive of the present administration to dominate our maritime environment. And it was against this backdrop that for the first time in a very, very unparalleled and unprecedented manner, this administration created a ministry that is charged with the responsibility of dealing with blue economy. And this was done against the background of the fact that there is the need for us to diversify our economy away from oil to other sources of revenue. Today, other countries, other jurisdictions that are blessed with abundance of maritime resources exploit these resources to the benefit of their economy, to the extent that it significantly contributes to their GDP. So this bill is in tandem with the vision of the present administration of creating the Ministry of Blue Economy to superintend our maritime domain. And Mr. President, laws are not meant to be static. Laws are supposed to be dynamic, change with the changing nature of society, because our laws are supposed to be organic in nature. So what this bill seeks to do is to amend the law to bring it in tandem with both the objective and subjective realities that is obtainable in the maritime domain now for Nigeria to exploit its maritime resources to its full potential, with a view to not only diversifying our economy, but earn the much needed revenue to deploy it to our much needed infrastructure needs. And what this bill seeks to do is comprehensively captured in the lead debate submitted by the sponsor of the bill. I urge my colleagues to pass this bill without much ado and with the speed of light. Thank you.
I don't know how we can do it with speed of light, but we will try our best. I also, because you also mentioned the fact that this is coming at a very germane time, and the time now is the time of the Orosanja report that may end up merging a lot of agencies, Nigerian Port Authority, Maritime. I don't know the extent of the measures. As we
that in the absence of any further items on the agenda for today, the Senate adjourns to Wednesday to continue the legislative process. I so second.
You have to clarify. He proposed that the Senate be adjourned to 10 a.m. of Wednesday the 6th, not 11, as the usual time. Senate Leader, you propose that with the Senate adjourns to adjourn plenary to 10 o'clock on the 6th and not 11 o'clock for plenary. Is that your proposal?
Well, Mr. President, distinguished senators, maybe in overriding public interest and for the attention especially of the public, maybe it's important to clarify this issue at this point. Our legislative activities are meant to start by 10 a.m. 10 a.m. does not necessarily mean we have to be in this chamber to commence sitting. We have our leadership meetings and other activities that ought to take place between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. but consistent with our practice and procedure and the customs and conventions of the Senate, by 11 a.m. we should be here for plenary. But we would have spent the first 1 hour, doing the other thing that we need to do, including our leadership meeting. I thank you.
Well, therefore, you want to amend your motion to say that the Senate should adjourn to 6th day of March, Wednesday, for plenary at 11 a.m. The other adjournment to leadership meeting by 10 and others are not known to the public because there are people who key into what we are doing here through Facebook and other media. I don't know how to call it, whether I should say other medium. But so for plenary, let them key in by 11 o'clock. But if you wish that they key in for the leadership meeting at 10, say so. I want it clarified. When is the plenary taking place?
Well, Mr. President, if there's anything that ought to be amended, it will not be my motion. If there's anything that we need to amend, it will be our rules.
Are you arguing with the Senate President?
Of course, the Senate President is the chief interpreter of the rules.
You have moved your motion. Now, distinguished minority leader, do the needful.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I second the motion that the Senate adjourns to Wednesday 6th at 11 a.m. for plenary.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved by the Senate leader and seconded by the minority leader that this Senate do adjourn plenary to sit at 11 a.m. for plenary on the 6th day of March 2024 at 11 a.m. prompt. As Senator Akwashiki, point of order overruled. Those who are in support that the plenary be adjourned to Wednesday at 11 a.m. say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.